But today we're going to talk about a committee that has come into fruition very recently. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. And I'd like to introduce you to the panelists today. We have Jose Villeda he's the owner of JLV Construction, and Dan Mills. He's the EO of the HBA of Greater New Orleans. So I would love to start with you, Dan. Kind of tell us about how long you've been the EO of the HBA of Greater New Orleans and a little bit about your background.
Yeah, first let me say I want to be a part of some of those pictures because it looked like everybody was having a great time.
Yes.
I came on with New Orleans 5 years ago. I'll be celebrating 5 years in just about 2 months, so I'm really excited. And over that time period, we've been looking at ways to extend our reach. And I come from an education background, post-secondary education, and so we spent a lot of time identifying ways to reach underrepresented groups. We have the issue in construction that nursing has with males in nursing. It's the same. We have not enough women in construction. And so I'm really excited to see the growth in that area. But one of the things that strikes me is the stats that you were just putting down: 3% Hispanic membership, Hispanic, Latino, or Spanish origin versus 19% of the population. And if you listen to Rob Dietz, you'll know that that's about 30% of our workforce in residential construction. So, it's not surprising to me that we don't have greater representation, because I don't think we've done a great job of reaching those individuals to provide all of the services that we traditionally use to recruit members. And that is education, that is business networking, and that is, of course, advocacy and savings. And so we had this idea to bring about a group that would have that task, a committee focused on how do we deliver those services to the Spanish-speaking community. And so we've seen a great deal of success with that. And I think that's a good spot to let Jose pick up.
Yeah, Jose, tell us about yourself. How did you get started in the residential construction industry?
Hello, everybody. Well, actually, it was by accident, to be honest. I'm originally from Mexico City. I moved to the United States when I was, 2005 on August 15th. So actually two weeks before Katrina here in New Orleans. Fortunately for me, I moved to Texas. So I was a little bit away from the storm. And, I started working in a restaurant, and a lot of people started moving to New Orleans because the construction part. So I made a couple of friends over there, and one of my friends, his dad was a GC. So he invited us to come to work to New Orleans doing construction. I didn't like construction. I never, had never had done construction in my life. But they offered me a good salary, better salary than I was making over there. So it's like, okay, well, why not? So I moved here to New Orleans, 2006, and I started working on the construction industry. And to be honest, I fall in love with it. I started seeing everything that we're doing, the renovation, the transformation that we are doing on houses that need, a lot of work. It was amazing. It was really satisfying. And, 20 years after, I'm still doing construction. So that's how kind of I started.
Amazing. And following up on that, how did you find yourself getting connected with the HBA of Greater New Orleans?
The same thing, actually, was by accident. After I started doing construction, I started working for a couple GCs, and eventually started kind of getting little side jobs, started doing little jobs here and there, painting, tile, drywall, stuff like that. And at some point, I decided to open my construction company. And one of the requirements is that you have to have your insurance. So when I started shopping around for insurance, somebody told me about the cell phone insurance from the HBA. And I started looking at it, and I liked the way that it was set it up. And, when I started looking at it, I want to sign in for that, membership, but they say that I have to be also a member of the HBA. So I had to buy my membership. So it's like, all right, well, that's what I had to do. That's what I had to do. That was 2010. So 15 years, and I'm still a member of the HBA. So it was by accident, actually. I was not looking for it. It was a great opportunity for the insurance. That was one of the biggest benefits that I'm telling everybody about it. I kind of get forced into it. But now voluntarily stay with it. So,
Perfect. Dan, you mentioned a little bit, but what's the origin story of the Comite Latino? Like, how did you identify the need within the community for something like this?
You know, Jose's story is a great one, and it's indicative of how a lot of Spanish speaking members become involved with the HBA. There just aren't enough of them because not enough of them know or experience the services. And early on, we tried to reach out to try to get members to join. But we would get a few members here and there to join, and then they'd come to a meeting and everything's in English. There was no Spanish language programming, so there wasn't a place for them to feel at home like most of our members do when they start coming to meetings. And so I reached out to Jose. I reached out to a couple of other members. We have some very prominent. Jose is very humble. He came from humble beginnings, but he's an award-winning contractor here, doing a lot of historical renovations in the city, multi-million-dollar renovations. An amazing company. We reached out to another company named Colmex, which is short for Colombia and Mexico, because the couple are bi-Latino, right? There's two of them. And so they are an incredibly successful award-winning company in the area. And the first thing that I recognized was that I don't know how to reach these potential members. And so I had to recognize that I'm not going to be able to do this. I have to find legitimate leaders within our organization that want to see this come forth. And fortunately, I had two very strong advocates in Jose, and Angelica Rivera is the other with Colmex. And since that time, the group has grown significantly, and we've found ways to do training. We've found ways to do networking. And every time we have an event, it's multiple people filling the room.
Amazing. Jose, why did you decide to, take the call from from Dan and step into a leadership position?
well, I still remember how hard it was for me to join the HBA. Just to become part of the HBA on the meetings that you have every month. They invited me a couple of times. I didn't want to do it. I was so focused on getting my business going. I was focused on making money, and I didn't want to invest time on it because the Latino community, we don't do that just because we want to. It's just like it's not our culture, unfortunately. So for me, it was really hard. For me, I have a couple of good friends that they were part of the HBA that they keep inviting me to go to the meetings. And I would say, no, I cannot do it. I cannot do it. I'm busy. But they keep insisting. And finally, I decide to participate. And then, I kind of step into that. And then when the opportunity to start with the Latinos, I said, well, shoot, we know the Latinos not going to come in just because we have to start reaching out, having different, mindset and it's something that I feel like I can do it and Angelica as well. So it's like, hey, let's do it. So that's kind of how I started.
Amazing. Dan, you as an EO kind of had to provide support for your members that wanted to think outside the box to do something new. Like, how do you approach that with your members?
Yeah, Jose said it right there. He said, insisting, insisting, insisting. Like I tell all of my members, you can join a gym, but it's not going to help you unless you go in and you exercise, right? You have to go into the gym and actually do the work if you want to get something out of it. And the HBA is no different. And in this case, I have to act like that trainer. And what do trainers do? You must do it. You must do it. You can do it. You can do it, right? I have to be that person. And I think that's the number one role. And then giving people an opportunity to achieve something, right? Incremental successes that we can then recognize because everybody wants to be successful. And it is a great feeling to be doing something that's making a difference in your community, in your association, in your industry. It positions you as a leader. And we all know business is done on relationships. And when you're positioned in that place, you're going to attract more business. So it's beneficial all the way around.
Absolutely. Jose, that's a great point. What is the overall mission of your committee and some of your goals?
Well, Dan already mentioned a lot of the stuff, putting myself on 10 years ago, 15 years ago. Now, fortunately, I can speak better English. But when I came to this country, I couldn't speak a word in English. And when I opened my company, I barely speak English. So it was really hard for me to communicate with people. So imagine myself putting me in a room with everybody that they don't speak any Spanish was really uncomfortable. I think that was one of the hesitations that I have for so long to join this kind of type of organizations. So when the idea come out that, hey, let's do this one in Spanish, it's like, oh wow, that's a great idea, because people can feel better connected, not just because the language, but also the culture. When you are with another Latino, you got a lot of things to talk about it, a lot of culture. It's very similar to between us, and it makes more comfortable. So one of the first things is that we want to create a place where people feel comfortable, so they want to go and participate. The other one, there is a lot of information out there. Like when I go to these meetings with Dan and the members, I learn so much of what's going on, what's coming, the new code enforcement, the new rules, what's going on with every association on New Orleans. And that's a lot of information that otherwise, if I was no part of this organization, I won't get it. So that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to get that information and pass it to the members in Spanish, so they can take advantage of everything that is happening in our city or in our state. If there is opportunities that they can take advantage of it. So it's like bringing all that information to people. Um, Network opportunities, because a lot of us, we don't know how to networking. We don't know how to promote our business. And when we get into this room with a lot of people that do the same thing that we do, it gets a lot of connections. So bring business opportunities, education, networking, and the advocacy is just an amazing thing. So that's the things that we're trying to promote on the Latino community.
Perfect. How do you ensure that the language access doesn't just check a box, but really provides a real inclusive environment?
Well, everything that we do is in Spanish. All the members speaks. Most of us will speak both languages, but there is some people that they don't speak Spanish. So we do everything in English. The meeting, I mean, in Spanish. The meetings are in Spanish. Any information that we provide to the people, we translate it to Spanish. The events that we do are in Spanish. So we're truly trying to embrace the language and speaking in Spanish, which sometimes is hard because you do business in English, and sometimes we're talking, and then it's like we start talking in English, and then somebody's like, "Hey, I don't understand what you're saying." It's like, okay, well, let's go back to the Spanish part. But yes, sometimes it's tricky, but we're trying really hard to make everything available in Spanish, and the conversations happening in Spanish as well.
Perfect. Dan, how are you working to ensure these underrepresented groups have a place in the rest of the association so it's not siloed?
That's a great question. So, the thing with language, just to reflect on what Jose was just saying, is anyone that studies language, and estoy practicando mi español para todos los días, but anyone that studies language understands that it's not a word to word translation, it's all about expression. And when we get to technical education and we're talking about whether it's compliance with code or it's safety training or any of these things, it's very difficult to just do a word translation for these things. It's important to have that native speaking that can respond and interact and express it in the proper cultural context. So that's a real key. In terms of what we're trying to do with the council is we set up some goals for the council to try to accomplish a couple of things. We wanted to see if the committee could grow members, if we could add members to the group. And secondly, we wanted to see if we could attract sponsorship. And in both instances, we did. We got new members and we attracted sponsors who are interested in getting into this niche market. Many people look and they notice that Sherwin-Williams has a large percentage of the business of the Spanish-speaking community. And so I've got a local paint group here. They really want to get into that market. And so that is a natural attraction for those sponsorship dollars. So there's a real goal there. Since we've seen success, I think that the next step, now that we've provided a home and programming for these groups, is to make sure that they have real representation with the organization. So we are now looking at, with senior leaders, providing a transition of the committee to a standing committee or even a council, a local council, that will have a seat at the board of directors, because it's very important that someone on our board is listening to everything that's going on and bringing that back to the group. in Spanish, and then listening to all of the concerns with the Spanish speaking group and bringing those back to the board so that they can take appropriate steps. So we're kind of at that transition point now where we're beginning to do that, and I know that that's going to send a very important message that we're serious about finding ways to serve this very large portion of our workforce.
Absolutely. Jose, what piece of advice would you give to HBAs or members or EOs that kind of want to reach out to minorities in the community who may not feel like their HBA currently represents their interests?
Well, as you mentioned, 90% of the population in the United States is Latinos. And then you mentioned as well, 30% of the construction work in the United States is done by Latinos. There is a statistics that says that in 25 years, the Latinos gonna be about 30% of the total population. So that will put us on the second largest racial group in America. So it is a large opportunities for you guys that need to capitalize. There is a lot of companies that they are doing it. Sharon Williams, you mentioned Sharon Williams. I was part of the Hispanic community as well that they create where they were, kind of getting different members of different states on Spanish. They were trying to see how they can serve the community better because they understood that the transformation right now is happening. Many baby boomers are kind of exit out right now, and many of those ones own the construction industry. And unfortunately, nobody else want to take over. So those businesses are kind of disappearing. So a lot of the Latinos are taking over those businesses. So in 20 years, 30 years, the construction industry is going to be dominated by Latinos, or at least on the labor force and some of the smaller, construction companies or trades. So it is a great opportunity right now. So you need to tap into it because eventually, like I said, statistics points that Latinos gonna dominate construction, industry. So it's a large, um, population that you need to tap into it.
Absolutely. Dan, same question to you. What piece of advice would you give?
Yeah, I mentioned Jose and Angelica, and they are licensed contractors in our market that are building and doing incredible remodel work for our community. But we also have to recognize that a large portion of members that are Spanish speaking in these communities are in the subcontractor. They're in the trades. Many of them are in the licensed trades. And so one of the things we recognized with that is first, a compelling reason is if we can increase our Spanish speaking or Latino membership to just the US average of 19%, we would add 185 members to our local organization. That would be an amazing feat right there. But secondly, we need a way to keep track of them. And we'd already been talking about this idea that we have associate members and some of them are licensed trades, right? So we're looking at our bylaws to be able to define a subset of associates specifically as licensed trades. And I think that's really going to help us market not only to those trades, but identify a large group of new members that can come in this Spanish speaking population.
That's great. What kind of feedback have you received from these Spanish speaking members since launching the committee?
Wow, it's been, I haven't had anything negative about it. Everyone that I've spoken to is really thrilled. They say, we have a local Hispanic Chamber of Commerce here that's very, very strong and very successful. But they provide business programming. Nobody provides residential construction, education, and business networking except for the Home Builders Association. And so it's an amazing opportunity for them to find that connection that they can't get anywhere else. And so as we've begun to roll these out, I'm not kidding, we get 40 or 50 people show up to these events, the meetings. It's very popular, great feedback, and we're beginning now to see the returns on that investment with members joining and attracting that sponsorship back. So it's an amazing thing. We have a challenging road ahead of us in many different regards. But this is a critical portion of our workforce. It's a growing portion of our workforce. And, the more that we can provide that education and the training and the business advocacy, the more quality work that we can have and the better representation we can have within the building community in our area.
Absolutely. Jose, if you had one message for like the leaders of NHB and kind of HBAs around the country, what would that be?
Well, I probably would say like, look, Latinos, we are really hardworking people. We work really hard. We like what we do. And right now there is a really strong competition on the world. Like, the USA before it was the dominant country everywhere. Now there is other countries that are fighting for that first place, China, India. And what they have is a lot of labor force. And right now in the United States, we are kind of having a lot of issues with the Latinos, and we are not the enemy. Actually, I think that we together can help this country to keep fighting and to keep being the number one place in the world. And if we work together, I think that we can do amazing stuff. Like, again, we're not the enemy. We're here to help. We want to grow, same as everybody, and we should work together to make it happen.
Absolutely. Dan, if an association leader in the audience or an HBA, wants to start something similar tomorrow, what's kind of the very first step they should take?
You know, reaching out and getting to this community requires legitimate leadership. So I know I speak broken Spanish perfectly, right? But that doesn't make me a legitimate leader. So no matter what your leadership skills are and what your project management skills are and how good you are as an executive officer, if you don't have legitimate leadership, it's going to be very difficult to start a committee like we have here. So you have to find the members in your organization that care about this issue. You have to inspire them, and then you have to empower them to move forward. And sometimes that means overcoming some objections with some board members. I had a board member that said, well, what's next? We're going to have a French council and a German council. And I said, not until they're 30% of our workforce, we're not. We're addressing a legitimate concern within our workforce, and we've got to find ways to provide that programming. So making that argument, getting the buy-in from your leadership, and then finding the legitimate leaders within your association, and trust me, you have them. Maybe they're not actively engaged in your association right now, but every single one of my builders, I would challenge one of them to come forward that does not have a Spanish speaking person working for one of their subs or even working directly for them. So they're out there. What you need to do is talk to your members and let them know if they're not in this community, they have somebody working for them that are. Have them join as an affiliate member, have them get on board, step up, create that community, move forward, define your objectives, shoot for X number of members, shoot for X number of sponsorship, provide some programming, just start that train moving, find your leader and get up and go.
Amazing. And Jose, kind of on the member side, what is one thing as a member they could do to take the very first step?
Well, I think that I would say just do it. Like, when we start there, we didn't have anything planned. We didn't know how we're gonna make it happen. Dan started kind of bringing those ideas, and at some point, it's like, okay, are you committed to do it? Let's do it. You don't have to wait to make it perfect. Once that we start doing it, people will start hearing about that, and they will want to join it. Like, there's millions and millions of Hispanics in this country that they're waiting for something like this. So we just need to open the doors so let them come in. It's not gonna be an easy, but again, once that you have the committed, just start it, and it will happen.
Well, thank you both so much. Those are all the prepared questions I have for today. So, if anybody in the audience has any questions for our panelists, now's the time. Feel free to unmute yourself. You could ask, or you're more than welcome to put it in the chat. I'd be happy to read it. Speaking of the chat, Courtney did just put a very brief survey. This survey is used by me to help plan these Third Tuesday town halls going forward. So please feel free to give your feedback on what you like, what you don't like, what you'd like to see in the future. Any questions? Okay. One last thing I would like to share. I'm going to share my screen again really quick. We know that this group of members has a lot of things that they're dealing with right now. And NHB did put together for builders this When ICE Comes Calling U.S. Customs Enforcement on the job site. So if this is a resource that you feel like your builders or anyone in your community could use, that is available on nhb.org, and it kind of gives some information about what the current laws are, and of course how NHB would be happy to help. So feel free to send me a message if that's something you're interested in. I can send you right to the link, or we can get it for you. But I want to thank everyone for attending today. Again, thank you, Jose. Thank you, Dan, for your candor and your information. And I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day.
Hey, Rachel, just a quick final thought here.
Yeah, please.
NAHB adopted policy on immigration almost 20 years ago now, and it's about expanding pathways to documentation for those that are here, that are doing things right way and finding a way to get them here, and also expanding our access to visas. So secure the borders is part of that, but also finding a pathway. So that's a big part of it. The ICE resource that you just showed there is an amazing resource for all of our members because there's liability involved, right? When someone shows up, you need to understand how to protect your business and how to protect your workers that are there, whether they're immigrants or whether they are not. You need to understand that liability and what the law is, and so it's an amazing resource. And then the final thing I wanted to say is, in the course of going through this, we've identified different resources and we've reached out to NAHB, and they've been an amazing resource for providing translated versions of a lot of the resource materials we provide to members. And I'm able to relay that out to the Spanish-speaking community and those that are participating in this committee in particular. And some of that is language, right? Language for your subcontractor agreements and others. So some amazing resources. You guys have a fantastic team there at National. So thank you for all that you do.
Thank you, Dan. And yes, if there is something that you'd be interested in getting translated, our team is always happy to help on that front. If there are any resources that we could provide in other languages, Spanish or another part of your community that has a lot of speakers in your area, just let us know. Amazing. Thank you all so very much. Like I said, I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, and we'll see you at the next TTT.
Thank you.